I definitely feel like I missed out when they were younger. And I worked from home. I worked because I worked with US, I worked late nights a lot. And, I definitely feel like there was this thing about wait, wait 10 minutes, like I couldn't be there for them when they came and asked for something. And I felt frustrated because I was trying to work and focus and do things. So that whole thing of juggling all this stuff at the same time, it's really hard. It's frustrating for everyone. And I felt I felt very guilty of not being present when, and then feeling that. And it was always like, mom works all the time.
Welcome, everybody, to Look Both Ways, where we explore the real stories of women who've built remarkable careers, all while raising children. I'm your host, Jenna Randolph. Today's guest is Mia Bjorkroos, a fractional COO, operational strategist, and global fitness industry leader who spent more than 20 years helping wellness and lifestyle brands turn vision into action. She helped expand Piloxing into more than 90 countries, has guided teams around the world, and raised 2 sons along the way. Mia's story is about resilience, reinvention, and learning to lead differently, both in business and in life. Welcome, Mia.
Thank you so much, Jenna.
So let's start from the beginning. Where did you grow up?
Yeah, I'm born and raised in Sweden, in Stockholm.
How would you describe yourself as a kid or a student? What was life like growing up in Sweden?
I was always very determined. I was not the kind of kid that knew what I wanted to do when I grew up. I just knew that I was always going hard for things. And I was a typical A personality. I had great grades. I was always excited. I was willing to try new things. I had the fortune of traveling a lot when I was a child with my parents. They took me around the world, which I think brought a sense of excitement about new things and different ways of living and doing things. I felt that I had a lot of support from my parents. They knew I was always up for a challenge. So throughout my childhood, they did what they could to either expose me to new things or challenge me for different ways through schooling, through trying new things without pressuring me to do it. But I'm very grateful to have had all of those opportunities.
So you weren't the kind of kid that had to be dragged out of bed or forced into activities. It sounds like you were, in fact, the opposite.
Oh, totally. My dad, he was a cyclist when he was young and was very much into exercise and totally the one that put that gene in me while I'm in this industry. He was my soccer coach. He took me biking in France for 3 weeks along the coast of France and Italy. We did some crazy things together, and he made me really enjoy that part. And that later, I don't really know how it happened. I started dancing, and then that became my focus outside of school. And I was always getting up early in the morning before going to school. I was out running and jogging. I was going to dance classes after like long days at school and stayed there late, and was very dedicated. And I think that's kind of who I was always been. I go for it. I have a determination and I just do it.
I love that. I'm just imagining raising that kind of child, and it just sounds dreamy. What was your parents' approach to work and life and balance? It sounds like they had a good, healthy relationship with exercise. How did they model home life for you?
Yeah, it's funny you say that because it was my dad who tried to drag my mom to exercise, and she was not an exercise person. So I think he was
Okay.
glad he had me to do all that stuff with. No, they were actually very different, and I really appreciate that. I mean, first and foremost, we grew up in a very, you know, I think what most people think of Sweden, which is actually very true. Like, I feel like it's a very equal country. There's a lot of support for families. There's a lot of parental leave, and there's a lot of dads that take a long time of parental leave, and it's a very equal foundation, I would say. So, to me, growing up, seeing how they also raised my brother, because he's 9 years younger, so he was little while I saw a lot of those chores and all those things that was going on. They split up tasks, they split up pickups. One person had dinner and pickups one week, and the other one did the other week. My mom was very much an artist. She is an artist. She worked to pay the bills, like, kind of just enough. And then she wanted to be home and do her art and expand her art career. My dad was really hardworking and he wanted to make more money because he wanted to do more things that made more money, that needed more money. So he's like, I work, I don't necessarily love my job, but I'm going to do this. And then he did everything he wanted to do. He went traveling the world. Sometimes I was with him. He's 70 now. He's still traveling the world, biking and doing crazy things. So I feel like growing up with that really gave me a little bit of both the passion driven. I definitely didn't want to do what my dad did, was like just work for money. But I
Right.
also wanted to do all those exciting things that he was doing. So it was like, I need to figure out a way to where I can do something I love and where I can support myself at the same time.
It sounds like you had one who lived to work because work was fun and passionate and artistic, and one that
Hmm.
worked to live and
Yeah.
traveled and cycled and went everywhere. That's such a great context to be able to have. What did you imagine adulthood would be like for you? Somewhere in between, or what was your inclination?
Yeah. I'm thinking back at it now, I don't know what I imagined. I feel like I was just having like a force forward, like what came at my fingertips. And is that something that I'm interested in? I was going for it. Like, I was really good at school. I could have gone into all these different kinds of universities. My dad wanted me to go and do an engineering degree, and get something where I could make a lot of money and do all that. Never pressuring me to do it, but I knew that that was kind of his mindset and the way he saw things. I was never interested in that, but I love dancing. So I had an opportunity to go to New York to dance school after I finished school in Sweden, and I did.
Wow.
Realized quickly that wasn't what I wanted to do. So just switched motion. But I think this excitement of trying new things, giving it my all, and then being okay with switching
Yeah.
was what drove me and still drives me, honestly.
Did you always know that you wanted to have children?
I would say yes, but I was never the kind of kid that was dreaming about a wedding and raising children or babysitting. I wasn't the babysitter growing up or anything, but there was something I knew that I wanted. I wanted to be a young mom for a long time. I couldn't put my finger on it. I just knew that. And I think the way I grew up and the way I saw life around me and the support that you have as a family unit, in my experience at that time, it was never really an obstacle. It was never either or for me. Um,
I love that. Do you think that has to do anything with the way Sweden supports mothers and families?
I'm sure it does.
Or
I think that alongside with seeing my parents having a very equal, splitting up task, it was never that it was only the woman's chores to take care of the children and cook and do all of that, which then you would have been like, okay, well, am I going to have my own career and do my own stuff? I
right.
never really saw that and it was never ingrained in me. So I never questioned it.
So the way it was modeled looked like it was achievable and
Yeah.
enjoyable.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. I think it's been really interesting and fun to reflect back in preparation for this conversation. And like, I like structure, I like planning ahead, know what's coming. But at the same time, I might not know exactly what the end goal is, but I'm like, okay, I'm pretty determined of what I want when I figure it out. And I'd been in the States for about 4 years, 5 years total, I think, when I was at my last year in college. And I'd been with my now ex-husband, but then partner for over 4 years. And I was like, okay, this is my last year in college. I want to be a young mom. Let's do it, you know?
Awesome. So you planned for it. What was it that you were looking for in a partner that made it feel like it was going to be the right family fit for you? I mean, obviously you said ex-husband, so life happens many years down the road, but
Yeah.
when you were thinking about planning your family and I think ambitiously jumping into motherhood at 25, but optimistically jumping into motherhood at 25, we'll say. What were you
Uh-huh.
looking for in a partner? What was that fit that made it feel right?
I know, I don't think I thought that much at that time.
Yeah.
Just go for it. No, I mean, I knew I wanted someone that had same kind of ambitions that I had. I was going for it, and he definitely did. He'd done so many amazing things in his life, and that was fun and living and wanted to achieve things in this world. And I wanted someone that understood and appreciated my need for achievement and wants, which he very much did. And I wanted someone that would be a very hands-on dad. And I feel like without really knowing what it would be like, I felt like he was the one. If it's anything, he has always been a great dad, and he still is, and very hands-on and involved. So I think I definitely found the right match for my kids,
That's great.
for sure.
So, at the time that you had your first son, bring me back to that time. Had work taken off? What were you doing? Were you still in college?
I would definitely not say my career had started at all. I got pregnant while I was in my last year in my bachelor's degree. Again, like I said, it was planned. I thought it was going to be great. I'm gonna, finish in June. I'm gonna have my kid in December, and then I'm gonna have my own business, and everything is gonna be great.
Okay.
Now, didn't wasn't really that easy, right? That I had initially thought, and you have to adjust. So I think that's what I did. But I tried to prepare. Like my last year in college, probably a little bit ahead of that, I'd started thinking about kids because I was really interested in prenatal exercise, prenatal care during exercise during prenatal, postnatal. I did pretty much every thesis that I needed to do on the topics, whether it was biomechanics or exercise physiology or psychology. Everything had something to do with prenatal. So clearly I was like preparing myself, and I wanted to have a focus and do work in that once I graduated, which was great because I was pregnant and I experienced all of those things myself at the time. And I tried, but I learned pretty quickly that it's hard to have that focus energy that you need to have when you start a company or start a new project or initiative and still having a baby, literally. The world just clashed for me at that time, and I had to choose. So,
Absolutely. And
yeah.
were you in the US at that time or were you in
Yeah,
Sweden?
I was
You're
in
in the US.
US. Both my boys are born here. Yeah.
Okay. What do you remember about those early years? I love your optimism, Mia. I always have loved your optimism, but it sounds like you were thinking, okay, easy. I plan this. This is going to, this is the ideal timing. I've got a few months in between. What do you remember about those years?
So it's 3 years in between my boys, and there was a lot of things happening during that time. He was born in 2006. We had the big kind of recession hit in 2008.
Yeah.
So, and our whole family was dependent upon my husband's company. That's how we paid our bills. And when I realized me taking off and doing my exercise thing and doing everything in that space wasn't really going to be ideal, well, I had a little one, not giving it up, just making a choice for myself. What is the right move right now? So I decided to work for my husband. We had a home office, we had some employees coming to the home office. So I started taking over, and I'm a natural learner, I would say. I pick up, I figure out what needs to be done, and I figure out how to do it. So I think that was my really first playground into entrepreneurism and starting to learn all these different things and recognizing that I was actually pretty good at it. So I did that for a while until the economy hit even harder, and I didn't feel comfortable depending on only our company. So at that moment I said, listen, I need to get out, I need to do something else, I need to make money and have health insurance. So I went and I got a job at an engineering firm, and same thing there. It just taught me a lot of good things that I've had a lot of value of. Didn't really drive my career forward, but gave me that stability. And there's one more thing, that it was a conscious choice because I wanted to be able to go to work and come home and just turn everything off and just be there for my little one.
Yeah.
And having that thing that I really didn't care about. I mean, I shouldn't say that. Of course, I cared about the work, but I could 5 o'clock turn it off, go back home. And that's what I wanted at that time. And I feel that was a good choice. I think that season in my life too, it was also very driven by financial instability,
Sure.
and that I think it's different too when you feel comfortable and financially stable versus having that instability. Like I went into survival mode.
How did you first get connected with Piloxing? Was that around that same time?
No, this was a couple of years in. I mean, we struggled quite a bit during that whole time. We moved and multiple times, and in the middle of that, we decided, again, very planned, to have our second child. We wanted them
Yeah.
close enough. We didn't want to have to change diapers on two kids, but we wanted them close enough for them to have some sort of relationship and having them around the same time. Um, no, I think even though I worked, I had those work that necessarily wasn't my profession or what I wanted to do. I was always engaged in things. My dad had early on imprinted in me that network is really important. Surround
Mm.
yourself with people that can help carry you forward. That was a big thing that he put in me on early on. And my professor at university, he's still my mentor. He's an amazing human. And that was something that he was preaching to all of us. And I really took it on. So I was engaged in things. I started a group for Swedish moms in here. I hung out with different people and I got connected. And when you talk and people recommend different things, and then someone just knew I was in fitness and she's like, hey, did you know that this Swedish lady has this format and it seems like there's something up your alley? It's piloxing, it's boxing and dance. I danced in New York. I was a Taibo instructor. Like it was just all like, okay, that's interesting. And I went there and I tried the class and I was blown away. It was the part of dance that I loved. Like I didn't want to become a dancer only. Like that's why
Yeah.
I left New York. Like I knew that wasn't my thing. But it was just enough of that to fill my needs from that
Yeah.
aspect, and then the hardcore fitness and the boxing and all of it. So I fell in love right away. And I was like, okay, well, what's next here? What can I do? How can I be involved?
Yeah.
And, that's how that started.
I love that. It sounds amazing. I was flashing back on Tybo. That was such a fun period of time. What was that, the late
Yeah.
90s? Early
I mean, that's
2000s?
probably where he was big, but I went, I got up at 6 a.m. in the morning and took Taibo classes before university. I was one of those who were up on stage next to him. And that was
Oh
the
my
goal. You
goodness.
got into class, you wanted to get up there.
I'm definitely the back of the class, hide me in the corner. But I was not a
Yeah.
dancer. I was not an on-stage person. But I love the enthusiasm of those brave enough to get on stage and make everybody else's experience more fun or just hide. So you dove into piloxing with
Hmm.
a fellow Swedish mom. What was that?
Hmm.
I love that for you. What was that journey like? 90 countries? It sounds like it was just this big global operation. What was that journey like?
Well, it definitely wasn't like that when I started. So when I first tried the classes right in the beginning, it was a boutique studio here in LA, and they had started the year before they launched instructor trainings and building their business around that model. Instead of opening more studios, it was certifying instructors, very much following the Zumba business model.
Right?
And so once I got involved and I was like, okay, what can I do? How can I get involved? I want to be a master trainer. I want to educate people. And the founder, she's like, maybe you should become an instructor first. I was like, okay. I went to become an instructor and that whole journey started. But it was a pretty short timeline because I think I took my first class in December of 2010. And that was around the time we just decided that we were going to move back to Sweden with my family. We
Yeah.
had an absolute low here in the US, and we were ready from all different angles to start over. We have an opportunity. If we're going to do this at some point, this is now. And I had that excitement about raising my children, having them young in Sweden, because it's an exceptional country to raise young children in.
Yeah.
So from like the piloxing perspective, I was like, okay, I wanted something that I could bring back with me, that I could do, that could put me up for work. And I mean, I didn't even think career at that time. I just wanted something that was unique that I could bring back and I could excel in. And this became an opportunity, and they saw it too. because they weren't in Europe at that time. They had had a few workshops because they were Swedish founders. Um, but other than that, they hadn't really pushed the market. So that's kind of how it started. I became the first master trainer. I just went with it. I can go into so many details, but that was really exciting. And so coming back to your question, like from a Swedish perspective, I think I didn't think about it too much at that time. I was so focused on my own journey and I wasn't that really connected with them. Um, there were three founders, two of them were Swedish, one American. So from a mother perspective, I didn't really think about it at that time. But once I was in Europe and started traveling and getting more connected with them, the other founder who was very much the business side of things, she was the lawyer, she ran all the business department. Her and I started to traveling a lot. We did a lot of conventions, we did a lot of presentations. In the beginning, she was very much like a mentor and support. And I feel like thanks to her, I got the opportunities to build the career that I wanted today. But she was also an incredible support from motherhood perspective or a wife perspective. We were similar age. We grew up in a very similar neighborhood. So my journey with Piloxing was really developing from a master trainer to head of operations and growing the master trainer team in different countries to be able to expand. And it went from an educational perspective to more of a business perspective, my role. So there was one turning point where I started traveling a lot with the other founder, the co-founder, and she was similar age to myself. She had two children. She had two daughters that were just like a year older than each of my boys. And we connected from business perspective. We had the same interest. We did great work together, but we also came from very similar backgrounds. Different, but because we both grew up in Sweden, we could really understand where we were coming from and how we thought about things. So she became a huge support, or we supported each other throughout our journey because it's hard to do that kind of a travel that I did during that time. When I started, my youngest son was a year and a half, 2 years. My oldest was 3 years older, so 4 or 5 years. And I was gone 2 to 3 weekends a month sometimes when I was growing Piloxing in the beginning, because I was at different countries teaching instructors. And then there were all those different events, the FIBO, the Rimini, all these different events that we were doing. And sometimes that could be mean that I was gone for 7 days in a row or 10. It was intense. It was exciting. I loved what I was doing. I loved to feel how I was growing in my role, but it was intense because it was a lot of pressure as a mother of how you handle that. And then also on relationship. It's a pretty unique dynamic that you get into when you're the one traveling, and not the dads. So she was in a very similar situation. So I had someone to share things with, and she could share her things. And that emotional support is, I realize now, it's more important than the logistics of it all. Like you kind of have to have the logistic what you're going to do, but the emotional support is really what helped drive me forward
Yeah.
during that time.
What was your support structure in Sweden like? Was your family around? Was the structure in general more supportive? Was there a difference that allowed for you to be able to travel a little bit more easily, or did it still just feel like you were juggling constantly?
I think I felt like I was juggling because of other things, not necessarily that. I had my parents, if there were any ever emergencies, they had their dad, very hands-on, doing a lot of things. I think that was make me feel okay. Like if I didn't have him, I wouldn't have been as okay traveling. But because I knew he was very hands-on, I'm like, they have a perfectly fine dad. He's just as good for them as I am. It is okay that I'm not there all the time because they have him. And I truly believe that. I think what's really different there is the support system, right? You have daycare facilities like from their 1 year old is very affordable. It's not even close to what it is here. And then the school and We lived really close to school. My youngest one literally walked to school at 6 years of age. I mean, you can't compare it. It took 15 minutes to go pick them up. And we lived in an area where they were out running and playing around with their friends. It wasn't like you always had to plan play dates and travel and sit off an entire day for them to get entertained. Nope, they opened the door, they ran out to the park, and they were playing around with their friends. So I'm so grateful that I was able to give them that during that period of time when they were at that age. But that also allowed me to feel much more comfortable that I was gone. It wasn't like they were not going to have any play dates because there was going to be no time for that to be organized or anything. Like, no, I knew that they were going to be able to play with their friends and do things. And like I said, like their dad was always there and taking care of them. I think that helped me a lot during that time.
You made it work.
Yeah.
Most of the women I have talked to have felt this sense of guilt for not necessarily being more present. Is that something
Mm.
that you feel also? Or do you feel like because the relationship with your husband and the workload was spread between you, that they benefited just as much for having their father around? I guess what I'm asking me is, do you feel guilty about missing time with them, or do you think that it shaped them into the amazing humans they are today?
I think both. But I definitely felt guilty. I mean, I think that you can't get around feeling guilty. The conversation I had with myself that they're just as well at home with their dad. I mean, that's something that I do believe in, but that doesn't necessarily take away the guilt that you're not there. You don't have the energy to be present all time. I think for me, I definitely feel like I missed out when they were younger. And I worked from home. I worked because I worked with US, I worked late nights a lot. And, I definitely feel like there was this thing about, wait 10 minutes, like I couldn't be there for them when they came and asked for something. And I felt frustrated because I was trying to work and focus and do things. So that whole thing of juggling all this stuff at the same time, it's really hard. It's frustrating for everyone. And I felt very guilty of not being present when, and then feeling that. And it was always like, mom works all the time and having that hanging over me. I think it's different when you don't work from home too, because you're not put in the same room as your kid. They don't see it. You go out, you work, and you come back. But if you're there, they kind of expect you to be available, them and your husband or partner or whatever, right? And then when you're not available, you feel guilty because you can't give them the attention they want. Maybe you want to give them that, but it's just those two worlds. It's really, really hard to
Yeah,
combine.
I agree. I think it is really challenging to navigate both from home. There's
Hmm.
benefits, but it's
Oh, yeah,
also
for sure.
very challenging because they have to see mom say, no, not right now. And
Hmm.
when you don't have your work hat on,
Yeah.
when else do you say, no, I'm not going to give you the attention that you're asking for? It's just, it puts you right in that friction point of having to choose what you're doing in each moment from home, which is tricky.
Yeah.
Mia, what do you think your sons learned from watching their mom travel internationally and build this booming business? What do you think that modeled for your boys?
Honestly, I don't know. We will see. I hope that it modeled like independence and going for what you want, for them. And I do believe that they are showing that already. They're 16 and or 15 and 18, soon to be 16 and 19. And so for themselves as humans to really believe in what they're doing and going for it and giving it their all and seeing that it's possible. But also for them to see, women do it and be okay with that. So for their future relationships and future adult life to be able to have that in their experience growing up that women do this just as much as men, and it's okay.
Absolutely.
It's okay.
So you have described yourself as ambitious. I'm going to agree. I know you by now to be a very ambitious person. My journey with ambition and motherhood felt tricky. That feeling of ambition, being a little girl in Sweden, waking up, the day is in front of you.
Mhm.
You're waking up early, you're achieving, you're going, you're doing. That same level of ambition, how did that translate as an adult and into motherhood as you were navigating doing both at the same time?
It's hard because you want to be ambitious in both areas, right? Which then becomes like, okay, you're gonna do so good and be so good and be, and I think that's where all the guilt and the exhaustion comes. I feel like when they were younger, I had work on my mind all the time, and that was difficult because it was difficult to be present for both. Um, so I definitely feel and I felt that I wasn't as ambitious as I wanted to be, I think, as a mother at that time. And I did my best to try to navigate it. Now I do want to give myself credit. I was there, I was up, I was putting them to bed, I was at all the games that I was home for and doing all of that stuff. So I feel like I got a lot of it, but just mentally, not necessarily being present. And as I grew in my career and as a human and as they grew, I feel like I've gotten better to navigate that. And I also feel like some of my ambition with long-term goals have been a little more satisfied. I know who I am now, and I don't feel like I have to always go and get the next and the next. I just want to be good at what I'm doing and get better at what I'm doing, but not necessarily I have to take over the world. And that has allowed me to be more focused, I feel like, on the kids. And of course, now when they're older, they don't require that 100% attention all the time, but being intentional for me with what I'm doing with them. For me, that's ambition.
Yeah, that's great. So you were working from home, you had two
Mhm.
boys at home. How did you handle your boundaries, or how did you handle the day to day in a way that it felt like it was feasible?
I don't know. I did the best I could. And I think that's the hard part. You have to figure out what works for you and what works for your family. I did a lot. I tried to uh, do things like it didn't work from I didn't pick up my phone in bed. I turned off notifications. And I think the more you practice, the more you learn. And like, okay, maybe notifications aren't on your email all the time. That way your focus is not taking away from the people around you. And um, but it's hard. But it's
Yeah.
hard. And it's constant work. And I think you have to learn how to set the boundaries. It's like, now I'm working. And I read all of these things like, yeah, you're gonna put up a sign, mommy's working, or so that you can communicate with your kids about that. I don't think I did a great job with it, but I think it's definitely possible.
I'm thinking back to COVID. My daughter, who was 9 at the time, wrote a sign. I was working out of her bedroom for a period of time because my office didn't have a door on it. And she wrote
Hmm.
a sign that said, "Mom is working, donut come in," because she didn't know
No,
how to spell
but I
do
love it.
not. So it said,
I love.
"Donut come in." But that just gave me a nice laugh thinking back about that. Yes, COVID, absolutely challenging, but gosh, it feels nice to be able to look back on it.
I know. I was teaching virtual classes at home. I had the door close to the living room. I have to go, do not open the door.
Right?
They're like middle schoolers, and you couldn't tell them what to do. They were going to do it anyway
Yep.
if they really wanted to. So you just
Yep.
did the best you could
And the
out of it.
it's the I think the thing that gets me too is the outburst of giggling because you really don't want to be mad when they're laughing really like that really great visceral laugh that sometimes kids
Yeah.
get. But you're also like, that is so loud and so distracting, and I'm trying to be professional on a call. But yes, it's very
Uh,
much, I still, Mia, have to have those conversations of do not make noise. I need like 30 minutes of no
yeah.
noise. Go in that room. Do not come out. So funny. So you came back to the US. You're sitting in Los Angeles, right?
Yeah. Hmm.
Bring me back to that period of time. You moved back to Sweden. The boys are
Hmm.
there and they're playing at the playground and they're walking to school, and you
Yeah.
have that better support structure and you're traveling internationally. Bridge me to you came back to LA. What were those next chapters like?
So coming back was definitely selfish move. Don't
Okay.
necessarily think the kids wanted to come back, or I know that they didn't want to go back at that time, even though now they're thriving here. I missed LA a lot, and survived those 5 years because I was working with an American company. I was doing all the travel. I felt like, as a person, as a professional, as a human, it was also really difficult to navigate. Me and my ex-husband went through a hard time. We had for a very long time, like I mentioned, like we moved to Sweden as a result of a lot of financial strain and being there, traveling all the time, growing my career, right, from pretty much nothing to what it ended up being. It was hard on the relationship. And to some extent, we saw that as a second chance coming back. I still had the same work that I did. I switched from just being focused on Europe to more of a global perspective at that time. I got more into business. And for me, that was also a transition into figuring out some more personal things. I just didn't want my identity to be around Piloxing anymore, although I love Piloxing, never any question about that. But I wanted to explore other things. I wanted to do things. I wanted to go out and speak at different events on my own topics. So I just continued that same drive in different areas that I have always really had, and started a new project. I started a boutique tour that led to people from other countries wanting to do it, and they came in and I took them around, and one thing led to the next. So I feel like from my career perspective, I just continued to grow. And then with the kids, you had to continue to navigate. They were now older. I wasn't doing as much travel anymore. So that was helpful.
What were some of the hardest moments building your career while navigating your boys?
There was a few different times for sure when I was traveling when they were young, and figuring out how to do that and navigate my own energy levels, being present as much as I could for everything. The biggest, hardest part that I have had in my life is right after the divorce. And there was just a lot of things. They were still pretty young. I think my youngest was about 8 or 9 at that time. And everything just happened at the same time. The dog was run over by a car. They just found out that we were getting a divorce. Everything crashed. And one kid is very emotional. Like, he gets his emotion out. And that was really hard in his own. He went through his own journey. The other one went through an internal journey that he couldn't handle. He couldn't get his feelings out. So he internalized them, and then it came out in other different areas, which was really, really difficult. And that's when you're now single mom. You're going to figure out how to pay your bills at the same time. But this is right before we're going into COVID. So there's just so many things happening. And I felt completely lost. So trying to be like, how am I going to pay my bills, make sure my work is okay, and try to be there and do these things? And I'm lost. I ended up feeling like a victim. I think part of it from, like, when you don't have your tanks filled, you just very easily fall into that space. Whatever happened in our relationship with her ex-husband, whatever happened with the kids, I'm doing everything for them. I'm doing everything for everyone, and I'm just not, it's not working. And that was just a pivotal point for me, I would say.
So, things for a planner, things definitely not going according to plan.
There was no plan.
You are one of the most resilient people I know. How did you find your footing? How did you get yourself to that next chapter and rebuild your own life?
Coming back to that emotional support, I think is incredibly important. And I have my girlfriend, same person that I was traveling a lot with and working with, and being there for you and encouraging you to do the work. So, partially coming out of the divorce, I was like, I don't want this to ever happen again. So I need to learn what I did wrong and how things work. And I felt like I needed to grow. So I did a lot of personal development courses for myself and then also for being a parent and how should I handle these different challenges. And I feel like that work affects your relationships, your parenting, your career, it affects all of them. So I dug into a lot of work. I had a lot of aha moments. I was able to dig myself out of that victim space that I was stuck in and starting to really appreciate the small things instead of feeling like, we're talking about ambition. Ambition is like, oh, the kids are going to do that and they're going to have best grades and they're going to be happy all the time and they're going to play and they're going to do it. Didn't have to be all of that. It could be them showing a sign of gratefulness. Thank you for dinner. There was a stage where a thank you for dinner was like my whole day was lit. That was enough because it was so many hard things going on. And being able to teach yourself how to appreciate that and see those things, it was huge. And also doing the work on like, why did I end up here? Why am I feeling like this right now? And I think I mentioned to you Alison Armstrong. All her different courses and work and books is really something that greatly, greatly affected me and it taught me a lot about myself and why I am like the way I am sometimes and how I need to use that to navigate. And I think that's work that any woman, any man, everyone should just do that work and specifically help us as professional career women and in our roles as mothers and partners and all of that as well.
What did Alison Armstrong's work teach you specifically? How do you think it can help women navigating these same seasons?
I'm not going to go into any detailed details because I think everyone should read it and do it on their own. She breaks down some fundamentals and she's talking about we all have two different parts. We're the human animal, which is very instinctive, it's very primitive, it's very about survival mode. And then we have the human spirit, which is really about our conscious choices, our values, and how we want to live our lives, and so on. And we're going to react to both of those things at all times. And it's going to trigger certain parts of us and how we handle the world and see the world and feel the world. If you use this as a in exercise and nutrition, when we talk about things sometimes it's like, okay, well, why is not refined sugar good like to our bodies? Well, that's processed. It's something that we came up with, you know, year after year, industrial revolution. We did things with a food. That's not the way it's supposed to. It was supposed to be whole grains and nuts, and you were out picking the berries. Like our bodies are built for different food. So if we like take ourselves back into the Stone Age, right? Like how our bodies were built and how male males have more muscles. They were out, they were hunting, right? They were bringing back the food. They were very single focused, going out there. They were the protector, bringing things back home. And the women were home and they were out in the fields and they were gathering fruits and nuts and they had to always scout everything and do a million things at the same time, taking care of the kids and picking food, making sure there was not a dangerous snake around that's going to bite the kid. If you think about it from that, it makes sense to me. I feel like it's so the hunter is really that, single focused, very masculine energy that just goes for it, productive, outward oriented, whereas the women multitasking and doing all these things. Of course, very generalized, but I think you can connect it back to hormones, right? Testosterone, being able to focus. According to her, estrogen too allows for, she calls it diffuse awareness, being able to see a million things, being aware. I'm thinking about it too. It's like, okay, well, you're working and then you have your kid and you say, yes, you're doing this. And then the phone rings and you're going to go to the stove when you're going to cook. We can do that. We can actually excel at that stuff,
We can.
right?
Yeah.
But then also recognizing that we're all in these different modes. It's not just single focus or that mode for single focus just for men. Like we do it too. So when we're working women and we get into this state where we need to have single focus, And then we get interrupted by people because they're expecting us to do all of these things. It's extremely energy taxing, and it's hard because our bodies aren't necessarily built for that to that into that extent and to do it for that much that men are sometimes,
Sure.
right? So anyway, all of this work just made me recognize how I had been in survival mode for almost my entire career, my entire life. I think part of it is like I'm built to being ambitious and goal oriented and driven. But part of it is also just the survival mode that I was put in. We were under financial stress. I ended up being the primary breadwinner for a long time. I wanted to excel in my career. That was just part of my go, go, go. And I lost a lot of that time where I wanted to have that diffuse awareness. It wasn't really, there was no space for it. And I think that made me less attentive, coming back to that as a mom when
Yeah.
they were young. And it made me less of a wife. Like I wasn't able to do what maybe I would have wanted to. He kept telling me that I want my wife, I want my wife. And I was so angry at him. Like, don't you see? I'm like hustling, I'm paying the bills, I'm still doing chores. I'm still like, how am I going to be able to do this? So I didn't prioritize him. Everything that happens in a relationship is from both sides.
Yeah.
And being able to see that now and recognize that when I work, I need to get into this space. I'm not going to be able to do these things. And then to give myself time to do that and to be in this mode where you're doing a lot of different things at the same time and feeling connected with your kids and with your partners or with your friends, right? It's your friends too. It's being socially connected. So seeing that is super important. And it kind of gave me a reason for like, oh, this is why I ended up here.
So it sounds like based on Alison Armstrong's teachings, you got context to normalize what that experience had been in all of those years. What does that mean for the chapters that have come since the divorce?
I feel like there was a need for me. I wanted to find more of my feminine side again. And I think I had an opportunity to do that and understand what I needed to do for myself, whether that was self-care or just giving me the space and being okay with not being in single focused mind all the time. I've been so wired since I was little that like go, 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 we got to do the next, we got to do this. So that being part of my personality and then also kind of forced into me because of what happened, it made me take a conscious choice to be in this other space and allow myself to be that. It's actually pretty funny. There was a time after where I was with my new partner and I decided to change job. And he was very supportive of it. I decided to leave Piloxing in very good terms, still love them, and look for something different. I just wanted to see what's next and try something new. And he was okay. He took over the supporting role. We had been very like equal kind of up until that point. It's like, no, do your thing. I'll support us. It's all good. But having been so independent for so long and felt like I could only trust myself to provide and put pay the bills and all of that, I fell into some sort of a depression. I could not be there. I felt like I lost my identity. I felt like I had no control anymore. And it's not that I didn't trust that he would do it. I trusted that he would do it, but it was an interesting experience and it went away when I got my new role. So I think these are all important things that we need to learn about ourselves. Now, with that being said, I'm back into that focus space now again. So now I have
Sure.
to I have to do the work to come back to the other space, the good space that I really want to be in.
Sure. It sounds like during that time you lost a little bit of that work purpose and weren't able to feed that ambition need that I definitely deeply feel as well. And
Yeah,
I always say I wouldn't have been able to be a stay-at-home mom just because I
yeah,
have to feed that ambition
yeah,
or I feel like I'm self-combusting a little bit.
yeah. No, totally 100%. I mean, that, but honestly, in that particular situation, it was also like that instinctual provider piece that
Right.
just like, I got to take care of my kids. Like, what happens? What happens? What happens if
Right.
this doesn't work? And, you know, what happens if he leaves me? It's not his kids.
Right.
It's not that that was any plan or that was not what it was looking like. And it was just, it's interesting how you work. And the
Yeah.
more you're aware, the more you can set yourself up for success. If I had known about all of these different energies and spaces, I think I would have been better navigating myself as a younger self when the kids were younger in my relationship and my choices. I highly recommend it. It's very fascinating when you dig into all of these. She gives great examples that you could relate to, which is so important.
So, Mia, what advice would you give to women who are trying to build both a career and a family who feel that same ambition that you've described?
I definitely will always say just do work on you. And it's not just one course or one book, or it's this is ongoing work. And the more we understand ourselves, the better we're going to be able to navigate the situation and get what we want and do things that we are going to be happy about later. And just to give you a quick example, one of the courses I did, we had to identify what did we want, to give our kids and how did we want to be as mothers. And one of the things that I felt that I lacked was I felt I hadn't given my kids enough travel. Like I've traveled, like I said, a lot growing up, and I felt my kids hadn't done that. Yeah, they lived in another country. They got some exposure to it, but not even closely to what I had.
Yeah.
And that allowed me to put it on a plan. So I was like, okay, I'm going to travel. I might not have the money, but I'll figure it out. And next year we're going to go here. And the following year we did. So there was 2 years in a row. We went to Dominican Republic together, me and the boys. The next year I had them choose. We ended up in Tokyo, anime, very
Oh,
popular.
sure. Yep.
So, and it was such great experiences. And so, like, things like that is really what makes me proud now as a mother to be able to do that. And it takes intentional work. It's not just getting out of the day to day um, and
Yeah.
find those things that really mean something to you and that you believe is going to mean something to your children.
Yeah.
Do work on yourself is one thing, but
Yeah.
also have a support system, emotional support system around you. I can't tell you how much that helped me navigate my whole life. Someone that you could share with, that you could help you through these, that can encourage you to get to the next level when you don't have the energy to think or do that for yourself, whether that is or as a mother or as a career. And I think a common misconception, I know at least from my past partner, is knowing that I shared so much with some of my girlfriend, particularly one, and is that we're just complaining with each other, like they're not doing this or they're not doing that, or but it's not. It's about holding each other accountable and problem solving and encouraging you to think through this, not just support your negative emotions that you might have at that
Right.
moment. So, support system, whether it's someone you have close. I was also grateful to have a mentor that was like a different generation that's still in the industry. She's a phenomenal woman and mother, and she's done so much with her career. Like having these people that you can look up to, that you can model from and learn from, and just know that we're all going through some of these experiences and it's okay.
If you had to describe your journey of motherhood and career in 3 words, what would those be?
I think it's never give up, and always try to be your better self. You never know what the future is going to be like. My youngest kid, we were literally on food stamps buying his formula when he was little. And today I'm putting him through private school, being able to do what he wants to do. He's very athletic and he has a huge career ahead of him. And being able to give him that is like my biggest joy. And seeing him put all of that energy and effort into what he loves to do is like, I can't tell you how much that means to me. So, you know, You can do it. You just have to find your way and give yourself time and do the work and never think it's not possible. I got from bankruptcy and food stamps and divorce and to now we're actually living a great co-parenting relationship. The kids are doing great. They're doing what they want to do. And, you know, did I do mistakes on the way? 100%, a million of them, but that's all right. We'll do better and we'll do something different tomorrow.
Well, thank you, Mia, for your time. And thank you, everybody, for listening to Look Both Ways. If Mia's story resonates with you, please share the episode, leave a review, and subscribe for more conversations about ambition, resilience, and motherhood. Thank you for joining me.